que están aquí acompañándonos en el foro para el alcance a la comunidad. Si necesitan traducción en español, hay opción para que tengan los audífonos aquí afuera de esta habitación. Siéntanse con toda libertad de preguntarnos si no encuentran dónde pueden obtener los audífonos. So I want to thank everyone for making it out. My name is Cristian Rodriguez. I am with the Include Design Initiative, and our organization is part of the Alianza Collaborative. We are all made up of several different organizations that is being spearheaded by Alianza around environmental justice in our Eastern Coachella Valley. I want to introduce Lisa Mayer, who is the Deputy Secretary for Communications for California Natural Resources Agency. She'll be giving us an update of what they're up to, and then we'll get started with our panelists. So thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Cristian. So I want to start also by thanking everyone for attending tonight. It's late in the evening, a long day. Many of you might have been here earlier for some of the presentations. So I want to thank you for being here, and I really appreciate the opportunity to get to hear from you tonight. I can tell you that the state is really very focused on improving our transparency around the Salton Sea Management Program. We really are committed to doing a better job of engaging with the community in a very meaningful and sort of sustained way. So we are here to listen and to really hear the ideas from the community because we think that's going to be, very central to our success. So I'll just highlight a couple of the things that we have in the works as part of really improving our transparency. We are working with our engagement committee and community leaders to develop a more robust engagement plan. So there'll be more information on that in the coming weeks, but we really envision two-way dialogue with the goal of having the community feel like it's informed and up to date on what the state is doing, but also at the same time giving you opportunity to provide input that we can then incorporate, and importantly, provide a way for you to see how your input is being used. We understand that that is a very important part of what we want to do. We also envision next month unveiling a new website for the state. We're hoping it will be saltonsea.ca.gov. We're envisioning it as a very one-stop shop hub for community folks and anyone interested to come in and see what's happening with the various projects. We know right now there are several different state websites, and it doesn't lend itself to, very easily finding out what's happening. So we'll be unveiling that, and also more regular sort of e-newsletters or e-news blasts so folks can keep informed. And we will be developing out kind of a more robust schedule for public meetings, so you will know when the opportunities are to both find out what's happening at the state level and provide your input. So hopefully with that as the stage setting, we are ready to listen. I'd like to hand over to Arturo Delgado, who is our new Assistant Secretary for Salton Sea Policy, and he's going to give us just a real high-level overview of what the Salton Sea Management Program is, in case some of you, haven't heard about it in a while. So he can give you some highlights.
Thank you, Lisa. So good evening to everybody. It's good to see a nice big crowd. I hope you guys had I think there were snacks earlier today, right? Or how many of you were here earlier today for Secretary Crowfoot's presentation? I think Secretary Crowfoot gave a pretty good detailed overview on where we're at with the SSMP program. I'm just going to touch on a couple of high points regarding our status with the SSMP. So as many of you know, the SSMP right now is really focused like a laser on implementing the 10-year plan. That includes 30,000 acres of both habitat and dust suppression projects. Our project delivery schedule at this time is we're behind schedule. That's just the reality of where we're at today. And my marching orders has been to really redouble our efforts and focus all of our energy to do the best that we can to get caught up as quickly as possible. We have several buckets that we're really focused on that I wanted to maybe touch a little bit on tonight. One is the project bucket and where we're at with respect to projects. Our first big project is the Species Conservation Habitat Project. As many of you know, that's about 3,800 acre project that we're moving forward on. We're hoping to have a request for proposals out at the end of this month. And if everything goes as planned, we hope to be in a position to award a contract by the end of next summer, and then hopefully be able in a position to implement that project by the end of 2020. In addition to that, we also are currently advancing the North Lake concept project. That's roughly about 3,800 acres. It's a horse-shaped project on the north side of the Salton Sea. We are going to be moving that project forward as part of our environmental planning and permitting process over the next year or so. And then on top of that, we are moving forward with some dust suppression projects. The first project is going to be, it's a small project. It's about 160 to 200 acres, and it's called the Burchard Dust Suppression Project, and that's on the south end of the sea. So those are kind of the immediate projects that we have in the works right now. And I would say probably over the next few months, we're going to be kind of fast tracking a dust suppression action plan to implement additional dust suppression projects next year. Kind of the next bucket in our to-do list is partnerships. We're really focused like a laser beam also on developing and strengthening our relationship with our federal, state, and local partners. We're looking to build additional capacity and really focus on trying to build up foundations. One of the key items that we really need to be focusing on is land access, trying to secure additional funding to implement the 10-year plan, and also securing a water supply to implement our 10-year plan. So those are the areas that we're going to be focusing to work with our partners so that we can basically we can get those resources that we need to be able to fully implement our 10-year plan. And then the third bucket is one Lisa just talked about. Is really just honestly establishing a respectful engagement process so that folks know where we're at, where we're going, they can engage. We can have touch points along our implementation schedule and making sure that everybody has the information they need and have the ability to provide input along the way. And then the last bucket is the planning bucket. As many of you know, we can't implement projects until we complete the environmental compliance and permitting process. Currently, we have the SCA, the Species Conservation Habitat Project is fully permitted, but we need to complete the environmental planning and permitting for the additional 26,000 acres of projects that we need to implement to meet our 10-year plan. And so we're developing a programmatic environmental planning process so that we can streamline the environmental planning and permitting so that we can be positioned to implement projects as soon as possible. And that's pretty much kind of a summary of where we're at today. So I guess with that, I'll hand it over to Christian.
Thank you for the update. So I'm going to actually introduce my colleague, Sahara Wasano, and I'll let her talk a little bit about who she is and who she works for, and we're going to get started with our panelists.
So buenas noches, good night. My name is Sahara Wasano. I work with Alianza Quechala Valley. We're a collaborative of diverse group of organizations that want to change with the community, the economic conditions of the Coachella Valley to have a better community. So the reason why we're here and why we wanted to volunteer in coordinating this panel is that the entire conversation about the Salton Sea thus far has been around science, which is very important. But science becomes applicable when we see the impact with community and their health. So for us, we spend our time organizing with the community on diverse issues. Christian spends his time around designing parks in Eastern Coachella Valley, transportation, now moving forward to policy on air quality, along with other issues on education as well. So the type of work that we do is engaging community and providing them the resources and tools so that they themselves can be advocates. So we thought it was suitable to have the panelists be community members who are engaging in diverse needs because they're not waiting for anybody for that change to happen. So these are community members who've taken the lead, and that we look forward to you all hearing their point of view and their experience. Don't be, don't be misled by the diverse group of age, because age in itself, it comes with a diverse experience as well. So I just want to also highlight that we passed out these blue sheets, and if you do not have them, please get some. The point of these blue sheets is to engage, since this is an engagement panel. The question that we have here for this panel today is, what's the most important aspect of the Salton Sea to engage in? ¿Cuál es el aspecto más importante de Salton Sea para participar? So nuevamente, si necesitan traducción, en español, la traducción está afuera de aquí, más salen hacia afuera y ahí van a tener traducción para esta panel. So another aspect to engage in this conversation too, at some point we're going to have something projected on the screen, and you all have one of these, right? Cell phones. So these cell phones, we're going to use it for engagement. So we're going to be sharing a text number where you're going to be able to text 5-digit number, then you press Salton Sea, you write Salton Sea, and then you can start engaging by putting what's important to you. Whatever you put there is going to appear here on this screen. So we're going to have an engagement, even though right now it's lecture style, but those are the different formats that we thought suitable for today's.
We just ask you to be responsible. This looks like a responsible group, and make sure that those are definitely PG. No, I'm kidding. We want to introduce our panelists who have a lot to contribute and to learn from about engagement and work that they've done out in the community. And so we'll start. We'll read a short bio on them. We'll ask them to come up, and we would like for you all to give them a warm welcome with a round of applause. So we'll get started.
So we have Maria Gallardo. She's a student from Cal State San Bernardino, focusing on sociology. She's a community member from Thermal. She's part of many community meetings. She's part of a food collaborative who this past Coachella Fest, their cohort was selling their food as food vendors in the VIP section for Coachella Fest. And she likes to spend her time in activities that improve her community. Thank you for being here.
We also want to welcome Karen Borca. Karen Borca is a local to the Coachella Valley. She is living in the city of Indio with her husband and her cute dog. I can attest. His name is Chico. She spent 6 years as a trained professional community organizer, working for residents in the Coachella Valley, in the unincorporated communities of the Eastern Coachella Valley, and other communities throughout the Inland Empire. She is currently employed by Planned Parenthood of the Pacific Southwest and serves as a resident from Cook Street to Salton Sea as a director at the Desert Healthcare District. So thank you, Karen, for joining us.
And then we have Chuck Parker. He received a BA in English from Stanford University, retired U.S. postal worker, and member of the Salton Sea Coalition.
Well, again, thank you all of you for joining us. We are very curious to hear from you. We've prepared a series of questions that we'd like for you to guide us through, give us your thoughts, and really dive in. This is going to be an opportunity for community members to be able to directly let the state know how it is that you think that the state could do a better job about engaging with the community. And then, of course, we would really like for you all to be participating as well. I think that this is going to be a great conversation that clearly goes both ways. So thank you, Lisa, for being available. Arthur, thank you for being available to us. So we are going to start the panel by asking a very simple question about community engagement. So we would want to ask the three of you, and please feel free to jump in at any moment or elaborate. What is the added value of community being engaged in any governmental project?
I just wanted to say, first of all, our coalition is made up of community members. None of us are paid. And we have retired water engineer, we have retired nurses, we have school teachers, and students. And our goal for the last year has been to approach the city councils in the Coachella Valley and ask them to pass a resolution in favor of importing ocean water and a long-term solution for the sea, because we felt that this aspect was being neglected by the previous administration around the Salton Sea, and we're very happy. Most of the cities, 6 of them so far, have passed resolutions. We expect to get the other 3 in the next couple of months, and we're very encouraged by the comments by Secretary Crowfoot today. He was saying they are going to initiate work on the long-term plan right away. They're not going to wait for years while the other projects are completed. And I think the community engagement, what I've learned from this is that there's a lot of talent out there, a lot of intelligent people who are willing to give their services, to contribute their ideas. And it's very important that we get that input because I think for years, the Salton Sea, I've been going to these meetings for at least 3 years, and the people who were responsible for the work were not really, they didn't want to hear from the community, and they didn't reach out to the community. And I think now that we have most of the city council members in the cities engaged, we're going to be able to get more enthusiasm and more contributions from people and get a more objective view of what the community really wants. So that's what I would say initially, at least.
Good evening. The reason why it's important for government agencies to listen and ask community members to participate is big question, lots of answers. One of the first reasons is because government is here to serve the people. The second reason is because government collects our money. So they are stewards of all of our funding, but they cannot make those decisions and should not be making those decisions without community input. And lastly, as Chuck was saying, because there is a lot of knowledge, a lot of lived experience, whether it's academic or otherwise, in our communities, and the answer is already in our communities. We know what should be done. I can ask each and every one of you what you would like to see done at the Salton Sea, and you will more or less have some kind of answer for me. Guess what? That's the right answer. The Salton Sea is too big. The issue there is too big and too wide for there to be just one answer. We heard today that they're working on a cornucopia of projects. Those must have come from somewhere. Someone had an idea, and I can guarantee that most of those did not come from a single government employee. They came from different community meetings, different ideas that people had. So the diversity that lives within our communities needs to be heard by government in order for the government to make funding decisions that affect the rest of us who live in our communities.
Hello everyone. I believe that one of the reasons why it's important from the federal government to take in consideration communities like my community that is more near to the Salton Sea is because we are the ones who are going to be affected the most, and we are the last people who you guys take in consideration. We are forget it when this issue is affecting us more than many other communities.
Why do you think the state hasn't been successful in engaging the community around the Salton Sea so far?
Well, I believe a lot of the problem is that a lot of the people who were responsible for doing these projects came to the community or did not even consider asking the community what they wanted. They came with an agenda. And if they had a community meeting and someone in the meeting thought differently about what they were doing than they did, well, then they didn't want to hear it. They had projects that were on their list. They got money. They were going to do those projects, and they didn't want to hear it if you didn't think that was the way to go. And that's not the way to engage the community. It has to be back and forth. We have to be willing to listen. You put something out there, you have to really be willing to listen to what people have to say and what their concerns are. That's, I think, part of the problem. And one of the things is that it's still happening. There are being people who are in charge are having closed meetings that are closed to the public to discuss the Salton Sea. 2 weeks ago, there was a meeting at the North Shore Yacht Club, but it was for stakeholders only, and the stakeholder is defined as a person who works for a water agency, a state agency, a county agency. But if you just happen to be a person who lives around here, who might have respiratory problems or who has a house and you don't want to see it become worthless, you don't get to go in. And I don't think that's fair. Tomorrow, there's a meeting in Imperial County which involves the Air Quality Board and representatives from Mexico, also private. So I think one of the things that all of these agencies, anybody who has a meeting about the Salton Sea, should be open to the public, it should be advertised widely, and people should actually be listened to. I think today they were listened to. When Secretary Crowfoot spoke, he took all kinds of questions and he answered them sincerely and thoroughly, and it was refreshing.
Before we move on, yes, absolutely. Can we get the text number? Maybe people might have already a few questions or want to be contributing to the conversation. If we could, was that you? Sorry, I thought it was somebody in the back. I always want to blame someone over there. All right, thank you. The question was, why do you think the engagement hasn't been as successful as it really could be?
It's hard to do any kind of community work in 120-degree weather. However, it has to happen. It has to be done. It should cost $65,000 to hire a community organizer to be out in the North Shore, Thermal, Oasis, Mecca, any community within 100 miles of the Salton Sea, right? It costs $65,000, give or take, to hire a community organizer to be out there conducting healthy community canvases, calling people out to meetings, explaining to people in a culturally competent way issues about the Salton Sea, science about the Salton Sea, right? We know what works already. We know that there are community organizers that get the job done. We know that there are promotora models out there that get information to people. And we know that big community meetings such as this bring out ideas and topics and best public interest to light. So one of the reasons why I think it hasn't worked is because there hasn't been consistent presence from the state at the very local grassroots effort. They need to hire, you need to hire, I would ask that you would hire, community organizers throughout the regions that you would like to see get involved so they can continue having those conversations with people in the community day in and day out. They live in our communities, they're in our communities, they're here 365 days a year, not 10 days before a meeting, passing out flyers or whatever it is that's currently been happening, right? The other part of this is because meetings are not held in Spanish, right? We hold these meetings in English and then we bring translation and translate from English to Spanish. Where are the Spanish meetings that are translated from Spanish to English? Where is the parity and the equity in language access? And not just language access period to these meetings, geographical access, where are these meetings being held, and access as far as time when these convenings are happening.
Yeah, like as Karen mentioned, the meetings are not in Spanish when that is usually most of the members just speak Spanish, and the meetings are not at the right time because at 11 a.m. on a Wednesday is not a correct time. People work from 5 a.m. to the morning until 5 p.m. So that doesn't work. Plus, many of them have kids and they don't have where to live them, so they have to be like some type of daycare or food or things that these people need to be able to assist to these meetings because it's really hard. It's really is. I live in these communities and I know how these people are.
Hello. I think another thing, we have members who have done a lot of research about the pollution in the Salton Sea, and on a volunteer basis, and they've been in contact with residents of communities near the Salton Sea who've been given incorrect information by people who have been part of the engagement process. So I think that it's important to train the people who are out there, you know, in terms of what, if you're talking to people about health issues, you need to know what kind of dangerous chemicals and metals are in the Salton Sea. So when someone says, my child has a nosebleed, he has an allergy, he can't sleep, then you can say, well, maybe you should have a doctor test for selenium, arsenic, all these kinds of things that are actually in the sea, and not make the mistake of saying, with all good intentions, well, there's really nothing in the sea that can hurt your child. That will alienate that person in the community. And so, and I think one of the things Secretary Crowfoot said today is that we need to try and have a more collaborative, cooperative relationship with one another, so that if our group puts out information that's incorrect and maybe your group sees it and tells us, then we want to have a positive attitude towards that, say not have the attitude, well, why are you criticizing me? And conversely, if your group maybe gives out some incorrect information and one of our members points out that it's incorrect, then you should be willing to accept that criticism so we can improve overall. And I think as far as the website from the state and the newsletters, they need to be in Spanish as well, for sure. And I also think the focus of community engagement in the past has been, and there's nothing wrong with this, has been, let's engage with the people in the East Valley who've never been consulted, and I think that's correct. But also the people who live in the West Valley should be engaged, and because they are concerned about, in Palm Springs, Palm Desert, La Quinta, they're concerned about their health, they're concerned about their homes, and so we're all in this together. So I think if we can take a clue from Secretary Crowfoot. Let's try to work together and not be, being thin-skinned about it if someone says, hey, the meeting shouldn't be closed, or hey, you gave out the wrong information.
My colleagues remind me that when I worked with the community of North Shore on transportation and the community of Oasis on parks, what has helped us be successful and have like very tangible wins is that we've not only talked about parks at that moment or transportation at that moment, we're trying to figure out what else ties into it. Infrastructure in parks. If you build a park, you're gonna need lights. You're gonna need a restroom. We don't have water pipes for the restroom. We don't have electricity. If you're gonna build a school, you're gonna need gas lines. We don't have the infrastructure to bring gas, right? So it's connecting and understanding that it's not the Salton Sea issue. It's what is missing out in the communities around the Salton Sea and beyond the Salton Sea. What are those topics that move beyond just the smell, the dust, right? It's as Chuck was saying, and as you're mentioning, right? It's food insecurity, it's health concerns, it's job issues.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. And this is actually a great segue to our next question, and I think you all three have already touched on this. Is some of the tactics, the tactics that could be used, or what are creative solutions that the state could adopt to keep the community not only informed but engaged? And I think you all talked a little bit about that already, but if you could elaborate for us, what does that look like? What does a proper engagement plan, and what does it look like for community to be interested both in the west end of the Coachella Valley that has a different demographic and different needs, as well as an eastern Coachella Valley that we know have a lot of these needs that Karen was just mentioning.
Well, to have the meetings after 5 p.m., I would say, announce them 10 days before, and not just announce it on web pages, because many of us doesn't have Wi-Fi or computers, or we don't even know how to use the computer. Also provide daycare, food, and like the participation from that once you guys have a meeting as the community, what days work for you, or what hours.
The digital divide is very real in all of the unincorporated communities of the Coachella Valley. It's very difficult to get accessible Wi-Fi or internet connection in North Shore as it is in Thousand Palms, as it is in Desert Edge, right? So creative solution, if you're launching a website, can you help us figure out how to bridge that divide? Because that website will not be accessible by everyone, right? Can you advocate state legislatures to release more money that isn't solely 100% attached to the actual body of water, but is attached to other things such as infrastructure? Letting people decide, right? We have, out of these millions of dollars, we have $150 million. What do you want to see this money go towards in the Salton Sea? What do you all think this money should be used for? 100,000 out of the millions and millions, right? And lastly, the biggest part of engagement is that people need to see tangible wins. People need to be able to go and touch something and say, you know what, I participated in that meeting and I helped make this thing happen. And I know that because that's what happened in North Shore. In North Shore, we won the bus transportation line. It was a 250 annual investment that Sunline Transit Agency does in North Shore. As soon as that transit line hit the community of North Shore and the bus was going around, guess what? People started organizing for a park. Now they have a park. Guess what? People wanted to win a school. Now the school district has allocated $35 million for a school in North Shore. right? People need to see concrete, tangible wins. So if it's the dust suppression, great, make it fun. Figure out how to put a park there, right? Figure out how you're letting people feel and touch the science, I guess, in a way, right? But that it's concrete. And even if it's a small section of these larger plans, people can physically go to it, touch it, celebrate it, and use it, right?
In our experience with our coalition, I would say, try to get your community organized and involved in this problem. One of the things I've learned in this thing is that we learned from a water engineer that there was such a thing as a Southern California, Colorado River Water Quality Board that you can go to if you know about pollution issues in a water body near you. And also, when you're talking to people in the community, I think one of the tendencies in the past has been if a program is funded to gather information, that's all they do. They gather information and they don't offer the people in the community any way to get something done about the problem. Like in the community of Salton City, there is a real problem with the quality of drinking water. The water that comes out of their taps, and it's from the Coachella Valley Water District, it's yellow, it smells bad, it makes you itch when you take a shower. It's serious. But so we took them to the Coachella Valley Water Board, and the water board said, well, we don't test water in the home. We just test water at the well, and according to our test, the water at the well is okay. Well, they're not willing to deal without pressure with what's the problem in the pipes that lead to the house. Same thing, go to the water board. Well, we don't test drinking water. We just test water in rivers and streams and lakes. So a lot of the time, it takes a lot of effort on the part of people to get these agencies to be responsive to the problems that people have. So that's what I would say. Get organized and be vocal, and you need help from everybody, because maybe one person's good at sending emails and following up, and another person's good at speaking at the meeting, and someone else is good at something else, and we need everybody's help.
I've been talking about community engagement as everyday residents in our community, you and me. But the other part of the community that also needs to be engaged are the corporations, more specifically the farming institutions in and out of the Coachella Valley, whose runoff ends up and has for a very long time ended up at the Salton Sea. I was sitting at the Indio City Council meeting, which is my city, this past week, and they mentioned that they also have runoff that goes into the Salton Sea. So who we define as community is also very important. It shouldn't just be everyday residents. It should be people who are asking people to be corporately responsible, and it's asking cities who are also participating in runoff to the Salton Sea to come to these meetings, to sit here, to listen, asking them, what are you going to put in to engage your residents? City of Indio, how much are you going to throw down for a community organizer that's going to go out and knock on doors and get people to participate in the Salton Sea conversation? Because you also have a runoff.
Yeah, thank you very much. We are close to wrapping up, so I would like to hear from you all, and this is a question that maybe the panelists can kick off as our closing question. But what is the definition of a successful engagement plan for the 10-year management plan? And I think it's a pretty it's a loaded question, but if you could maybe briefly, and then we'll go out if some of the community members that are joining us at the forum would like to also contribute to that question.
Well, our coalition would like to see attention paid to the long-term solution, because ultimately, even if all the projects in the 10-year plan are completed, more than half of the dry playa is still going to be out there exposed to the winds, and the dust is going to be blowing. So
if we don't bring in water and restore the sea, then all of these other issues are not gonna be resolved. So to me, successful engagement is shown when you're paying attention to public health. When they first rolled out the 10-year plan 2 years ago, and we asked the director about public health, he said, that's not my department. You'll have to ask somebody else about that. And then they quickly corrected that and hired someone to start talking about public health. And now we're further along where they're going to do projects in some of these impacted communities near the west side of the sea and North Shore and deal with the issue of public health. So that's our definition. Thank you.
I'm going to ask you if anybody out here would like to contribute. If you could just raise your hand so that I can walk over to you while we're hearing from our panelists.
So my community would like, attention and also, to value our, not ideas, but our decision, because I think that it is important to take our decision into consideration because we are the ones that live there. So I think that we should be the ones decide. So I would say attention to us.
We thank you all for your participation. Let's get back to the reality of all this. We've been messing around with the Salton Sea for about 50 years now. We've probably spent enough money on surveys to fix it, and we're no better off than we were before. I appreciate your people's dedication. It's great. I hope something comes of it. But this has gone on for so long. It's a political football. And I hate to say it, but somebody's making money the way it is, or something would get fixed, but it never gets fixed. So I don't know what the solutions are. Community involvement is good, but it's big bucks. If we put the big bucks in the right place, we might get the thing fixed. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And just to elaborate a little, it sounds like our panelists are saying, yes, it hasn't been successful, but we have the answers. The community should be participating in the entire process, and that's how we will get things done. Anybody else would like to contribute to the conversation? Yes, sir.
I'd like to hear more about this plan of bringing seawater from the Pacific Ocean, because that's the solution to the problem. And we can talk about a lot of these things, and they're serious problems, but I'm not sure this is the forum for it. We have to get somebody to commit to a plan that is somewhere in the foreseeable future, 25 years, that problem will be solved completely. We'd like to get the sea back to where it was 60 years ago. That would be an economic boom to this area if it happened.
Well, I'd be glad to take your contact information and we can send you information on that. Secretary Crowfoot today said that he was going to be serious about reevaluating all the proposals that have been put in and getting moving on that. And so, yeah, please, I'd like to get your information and we can pass that information on to you.
I would say too, as the secretary mentioned today, in fact, we do want to be, focusing on more than one thing at the same time. I mean, we absolutely have to, on multiple tracks, not lose sight of the immediate term and the projects we're trying to get moving on the ground to make progress, but also really make sure we're not overlooking some opportunities with these long-term projects. A lot of ideas have been put on the table, and there's certainly a lot of interest and a lot of energy around them. I think we really appreciate that every time we come out and talk with community groups. But there's some big questions about them as well. So I think, what we are envisioning now is getting into a more formal process to maybe have a third party or independent review to help us kind of sort through some of the ideas that have been put on the table so that we can really kind of kick the tires, see what's there. We don't want to overlook something that might be feasible and might really have a key role in the long-term solution. But we don't want to lose focus also on really the on-the-ground projects that we're working on that can come online much more quickly. So we need to do both.
Thank you, Lisa. Oh, perfect.
What about all the comments people are texting in? Where are those gonna go?
So that's actually a fantastic question. She's asking, where is all this information going? Part of what we wanted to do through this was also to come up with a way to be able to report back our commitment at Alianza, Cancun Design Initiative, and all the other organizations that are moving this work forward. Is how can we best help the state to not only capture these things, but really start implementing it into their plan. So rest assured that all of the information that you're sharing with us, we are capturing, and we will be creating a report back to the state.
I would like one question. I like this idea that community has to get involved in making decisions and see what's going on. I would like to let you know that there is proposal for long-term solution for the restoration of the Salton Sea. But if somehow there is several proposals, I'm aware of it. But community needs to be aware of all of them somehow. So if there is any meetings, I would love to show you how at least my proposal, so community will be informed about it. Is there any chance when you make some meetings to invite me? And I would be glad to explain to that, because it's comprehensive design and needs a little bit more than just 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Yeah, can I be invited to make, when it's community gatherings, to make presentation, including others too?
Thank you, that's a good suggestion, and I think that's something that we'll really keep in mind as we get into this process a little further to look at the long-term plans. I think you've raised a good suggestion that we should definitely see if we can get something scheduled. I don't know what the timing would be, but we will definitely let folks know.
Hi, Brian Sinclair from Loma Linda University. I work with Alianza as well, and I just wanted to say, I like to highlight what Karen had said about getting the community involved and getting the people who live around the sea active in some of the science efforts out there. I put up community science on that screen there. That is the active engagement of people around the lake to actually collect data that can be used for policy and advocacy. So we have 3 different science tracks, and we're going to do one next week at the Desert Mirage High School for them, but we have another one scheduled after that. But it's GIS, we do balloon mapping, we also do water quality testing, and we're doing air quality using these air sensors that you walk around the community and you can get a GIS map of the air quality. And they're all really good integrative things. They're all like boots on the ground meetings. So we go and we actually actively collect data. And there's a lot to learn when you do that kind of participatory data action. So I just want to put that out there, that I think community science is a really important way to move forward.
Thank you, Ryan. And we're running out of time. I have time for one last comment over here. And then if we could just hear from the panelists, one last takeaway. Could be a word, could be a phrase. What would you like, not only for everyone that is attending and here to hear you speak, but what would you really like the state to take away from your contribution here today? So I'm going to come up here for the comment. Oh, all right, has a mic. Perfect.
Is it on?
Yes, since we finally have a community engagement here, I'd like to point out that no one asked us what we thought about the 10-year plan. That was shoved down our throats. I'd like to stop talking about seawater import as the long-range plan. We could have had water already coming in the time and the money that we spent with the 10-year plan. The water import is the short-term plan. Once water is flowing, then we start desalinating. Then we start cleaning up what's there. So I'd like to stop the talk that the water import is the long-range plan. That's just the start. Thank you.
And I just, just one second, I was just corrected, it appears that we're going to 7:30. I had the time wrong, so please, continue to give us your comments, and then please, if you have something to.
Well, I just wanted to ask if, there's, a representative from Salton City, one of the parents is here, and I'd like to ask if she would like to say something. She's up there in the back.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you could just introduce yourself, and then we would love to hear from you as far as engagement.
Hi, good night. My name is Nancy Castillo. I live in Salton City for almost 5 years, and we struggle. My community struggle right now because our kids are very sick. My son, 8 years old, he always have a severe blood bleeding on his nose, and we have allergies, we have pancake, we have allergy in the eyes. We're suffering for cancer. We have 2 kids on cancer in our elementary school. And we have kids who born blind. So I think the problem is going very far, you know? And I don't know why we have to go with a long-term solution, and our kids is gonna be suffering for how many years? 8 years, they're gonna suffer more. So I'm not going for the 10 years to do that, because I'm a mom, I'm worried about my kid, and I'm worried about the other kids, and I'm worried about the communities. And you know, it's a lot of people living around the Salton Sea. It's not just a few, it's a lot. So please do something for our kids, because they deserve to live a better life. Thank you.
And so when we talk about community engagement, right, like, that's what we mean. Where has her story been this whole evening? Where has her story been this whole day? Is this the first time you're hearing from an actual person that lives and is a neighbor to the Salton Sea about her family's health issues? It shouldn't have been. You've been at this thing all day talking about the Salton Sea. Is this the first time you're hearing from someone who is a neighbor of the Salton Sea about the real ailments? She said 2 kids with cancer at the elementary school. This should have not been the first story that you've heard here today. If you're coming back tomorrow, it should also not be the last story. My first comment was, we need to participate in this. She's doing it. Chuck is saying people from across the valley should be participating in this. Are you?
Any other contributions? Right. Thank you.
I had a question. What is being done to address the community in a more culturally sensitive way? Any plans that are being implemented?
I think that's a very good question, and it's something that we are working on in conjunction with our engagement committee, which has a lot of membership from community groups. So I would say that's something that we very much want to improve, and we will be looking for help and input from groups to help us do a better job of that. We recognize we have not done a good job of that in the past, and we want to change that.
So what's your timeline on that? Is that 10 years too?
No, it's not. We have a plan that we're developing that we hope to socialize with our engagement committee in November, and then really start to build out a robust plan very soon.
Thank you, Lisa. And I would just like to add that this is supposed to be a really constructive conversation. I know that a lot of us, including myself, have a lot of frustration on the way that things have been handled, but I think that this is a really great opportunity for us to be able to contribute to the people that are here that have the authority to be able to change the way that things have been handled, and for us to be able to contribute to that process. I have a comment right over here. Thank you.
I was just wondering if it's going to be an annual event,
Yes.
the Salton Sea Summit.
That's a good question for Mike over there. Mike Cohen from Pacific Institute.
Not if I have to organize it.
Okay, well,
Soon,
yeah.
periodically.
It sounds like this is something that maybe all the residents of the Coachella Valley are going to be putting together. Any other comments? Any words from our panelists from what has already been said, and anything else that you would like to contribute?
I just wanted to let everybody here know, after this is over, if you would like to know more about water import, we have a distinguished expert here tonight. Mike Clinton is back here in the back. He's designed the project for GEI Corporation. He's got over 50 years of experience working on the Colorado River and building water projects. And we have Nicola Lopchik back here, who also experienced very technically expert person. There may be other people here, but if you want to talk to the experts, a couple of them went out of their way to come here tonight. And as far as having another event, we can organize our own event also here in the community. And so I would like to encourage people to think along those terms. Our coalition is ready to come to anybody's community where you live, your city or the library or wherever, and present the information that we have. And I think that would help.
Thank you. Any other comments in regards to our engagement, what successful engagement looks like around the 10-year plan, and how the state can certainly improve on and build from this conversation that we're having now? So if you could just raise your hand. Okay, it seems like, no, okay. Any comments from our panelists? I think we might be able to wrap up a little earlier. I promise I'm not trying to get out of here. It just seems like this is where the conversation has gone. Right here. The question to our panelists, any other remarks, any takeaways that you want to ensure that our state representatives here leave with today, and how they can improve on clearly what has not been a successful engagement so far?
Hi, I've been following this for about 20 years now, and I came here looking for signs of hope. And the only sign that I've heard of hope is the idea that it is being considered, that the bringing the water into the Salton Sea is being considered again, maybe for the first time. So I'm happy to hear that. I don't know whether this would be useful to anyone, but if people here could show their hands in terms of who might be in favor of that idea, that would at least be some kind of information if you're interested. Water importation as the plan. Thank you.
Any last remarks, or any like I said earlier, any takeaways that you think the state representatives should not leave without hearing this from our panelists, from our audience, as far as how we can move forward with better community engagement?
Well, I'd just like to say, after this is over, if any of you'd like to come up and give me your email, or I'll be glad to put you on our list and we can stay in contact on this. Also, I want to go back to that I don't think this is the time for any more closed meetings organized by our elected political officials. We need to have open meetings where the community can hear and see what's going on and say what they think about it. And I think it would get over the situation where in the past, I've always felt like, gee, do I have the nerve to approach this person who is in high elected office? And that's kind of backwards because they're supposed to be working for us. Thank you.
I just want to say that my community is in need of change, but also we are ready to collaborate with the work that has to be done. And that's all.
Solutions have to come. They have to be tangible. The last conversation I had with a group of women regarding the Salton Sea, they were sharing with me that the fear that they have right now as women, as Latina women, as farm workers, is that the Salton Sea is going to affect the crops around the sea. That's their livelihood. The question was, Karen, ¿cómo les voy a dar de comer a mis hijos? How am I going to feed my kids? ¿De dónde voy a sacar para la renta? Where am I going to get money for the rent? These were women in North Shore. There isn't a school there. The school's an oasis. And the issues we've heard in Oasis are similar to those in Salton City. Nosebleeds, headaches, not just for students, but for teachers as well. So solutions do have to come, and we need them now. People's health is deteriorating. The longevity of people's health is an issue. We know it costs a lot of money to help heal people. Why should we wait until they're sick? So I shared these anecdotes from these women because there is real fear of the repercussions of not bringing in water, of not patting down the dust, of everything else. And so you started off and you shared with us like what is happening. I don't think these women know that. I don't think the conversation has been had with them. So to reiterate one last time, I think you need to invest on people on the ground. And those investments don't have to be heavy. They're not hundreds of thousands of dollars, thousands of dollars, when your budgets are millions of dollars. And beyond that, as my colleagues are sharing, right? Go to the community meetings, let people into the community meetings. That's it.
I just wanted to thank the Department of Natural Resources for having this forum and for inviting us to participate. And I believe they really are starting a new course to try and get something done, and we will support that effort any way we can. Thank you. And these ladies on the panel, I have a lot of respect for them and the work they do and the communities they represent. So I'm very hopeful after today.
Hi, so this may have been discussed today and I wasn't there. Sorry if I'm going over something that you already talked about, but as far as the 10-year plan and trying to get engagement, I think it would be really helpful if people had an idea what was the intended outcome of each one of the projects. And then, when we hear that, well, it's not on the schedule, well, what does that mean a year from now in terms of how much dust are we going to see, or how many crops are going to fail, or how many more kids are going to be sick? And it would be a lot easier to keep people engaged if they knew what outcomes were intended on what timeline, and you could see some incremental progress, just something to go along with what you were saying about you've got to have some sort of successes, but we don't know how to gauge the success of the project because we don't know. All we know is it's X acres. That doesn't say anything as far as what the outcome is. It describes what the project is, but it doesn't describe what the outcome is. So just a suggestion.
Well, two of the resources that I can offer you, we were distributing copies of the report written by Michael Cohen in 2014 called Hazards Told, and it explains what's gonna happen if we don't fix this problem, and it's really serious and dire. And then today, in one of the presentations, the representative from the Imperial Irrigation District showed a computerized picture of how it's gonna look as the sea dries up. And in the next 20 years, most of the dry area is gonna be on this north end near our valley. I mean, the rest of it's gonna all shrink, but this whole north end of the Salton Sea is gonna be dry, and all that dust is gonna be poison. So we really need to get working on this.
Lastly, go visit. The Salton Sea is beautiful. There's a state park there. You can go kayaking in the sea. There's community people that are living there. There's thousands of people. Go take a picnic up there. Go visit the communities around the Salton Sea. You can actually loop the whole thing if you didn't know that. Go visit if you haven't. And if you have, keep going back. The people in that community need to see you there. They are mostly Latinos. They do need to see the white allies out there, right?
And so we passed these blue forms that Sahara was mentioning in the beginning of our forum. Please, we would love to be able to collect those if you haven't, if you did fill those out. We will be taking all of the information that we received from you, all of the things that you interacted with through the message system, and give this right back to the representatives at the state level, because to Chuck's point, we have certainly seen a shift, and we are very interested in staying afloat in the conversation and being able to, like Maria was saying, collaborate and really create a strong partnership. So if you could help me thank our panelists. Thank you so very much for joining us and taking up your time. We know how busy things can be, so having you